Hello! If I was a Victorian time traveller, the only things I would take back with me are undies. Since I'm not a time traveller, I had to make some that could be acceptable under my Victorian underwear. Yes, I do wear them under my drawers. I need the extra layer for warmth and decency. I used a 100% cotton loan. This means my undies aren't flexible at all. I used a sheer fabric because I had nothing else more suitable. I had bits and pieces from previous projects. The only measurement I took was the distance between the highest points in the front and back. I made the pattern by cutting a random shape that resembled undies. Then I kept slowly trimming it to the desired shape. Of course, before each trim I measured it to myself. This was a tiresome process. I made several mock-ups before I was satisfied. I sloped the sides. I had to adjust the leg holes. I made a final paper pattern. The whole pattern included seam allowance, but I marked it at the sides so I could remember to take it out when making the placket. I didn't want to make the placket from a separate strip of fabric, so I didn't need a seam, therefore I didn't need the seam allowance. I had to do some piecing, so I decided to have a seam in the front crotch. I didn't line the crotch as I used 100% natural fabric. When you are forced to piece a garment, don't forget to add seam allowance to all pieces. For the placket, I made the side of the back 3 times 2 cm longer. I was going to fold it twice. In the front, I added a 2 times 2 cm extra for the placket. I was going to fold it twice as well. The reason I didn't cut the paper to the final shape was that I wanted to be able to use it for different styles later. I folded the ends for the placket. I backstitched the edges of the placket from the right side. If you're new to my channel, you may be surprised to find that I hand stitch everything. I joined the back and front with back stitches, then I felt the seam. However, instead of whipping it from the wrong side, I top stitched it from the right side. This way I got a really strong seam. I trimmed the edges of the leg openings. I folded the edges twice. I backstitched all along from the right side. I added darts both in the back and front. These undies don't hug your body, so you need to fit them by making darts. This was a rather delicate fabric, so in order to reinforce the darts, I folded them and top stitched the edges from the right side. For the waistband, I joined 2 strips cut on the bias. If you can cut it in one piece, all the better. I marked the seam allowance along one long edge. If you use a sewing machine, you can skip this step. I needed this line to be able to sew in a straight line. I backstitched on the line. I folded the other edge and turned the band to the inside. I trimmed the ends of the band short. I cut off as much of the allowances as possible to reduce bulking. I backstitched along the new edge too. I sewed the ends closed. I think I should have only basted the placket at the beginning, and I could have top stitched the edges after attaching the waistband. I made buttonholes and sewed the mother of pearl buttons. I had a short piece left from the lace of my 1893 drawers. It was just enough, well, almost enough to decorate the front. I cut the second pair with longer wings because I wanted to see if a drawstring solution was any more practical. Spoiler alert, not really. I had to add 2 new seams because I didn't have enough fabric. The leg openings needed some adjustment. Adding seam allowance was quite a challenge. I marked a line on the pattern where the seam of the crotch would be. I added the seam allowance below this line on the back and front, and above this line on the crotch. I stitched the seams. I cut a waistband, this time on the cross grain. I turned the edges and folded the band in half. I sandwiched the waist in the band. I top stitched from the right side. Then I realized I had to undo some stitches in the front. I stitched 2 slots for the drawstring in the outside half of the band. I had to make a string myself because I had no tape at home. When I undo them, both pairs just fall to the floor, so they are equally impractical. I prefer the undies with the buttons, they are incredibly comfortable. You won't see me in sheer underwear, so you have to believe me that they look extremely pretty when worn. Even though they are literally 3 times bigger than my modern underwear, when I have them on they don't look big at all.